Hi, I'm Lalit Choda, founder of the Non-Human Identity Management Group. I'd like to welcome you to the demo forum. Today, I'm excited to have Alex Rich, VP of Sales at GitGuardian, join us. Welcome, Alex.
Thank you, Lala. Good to be here. Excited for the conversation.
Okay, Alex, why don't we kick off and tell us a little bit about how GitGuardian started and what was its initial mission?
Yeah, no, for sure. It's a fun story, and it's definitely an authentic one, which is one of the reasons that I was attracted to the company in the first place. So the story starts at around 2017 time period. Our founder and CEO Eric Fourier was actually playing around on public GitHub. He was a data scientist, and he was particularly interested in exposed secrets and all the secrets that he kept seeing exposed on public GitHub. So he and his team at the time were running some scans, identifying some exposed secrets, and they were actually sending it to the folks who own the secrets as part of a responsible disclosure type motion. And he had done this a few times, and the light bulb moment took place when one of the companies that he had sent one of these exposed secrets to actually replied to the email and asked for the invoice. They were interested in the renewal, and that, in a lot of respects, was the birth of GitGuardian. So we started with the public monitoring product, and since then have released solutions for internal monitoring and most recently NHI Governance.
Okay, fantastic. I was recently reading kind of your amazing State of the Secrets report, 2025. And one of the things that stood out was that you had found 23.7 million secrets in public GitHub repos, which is just astonishing. Look, what are some of the bad behaviors that you see, and why are folks like developers being so careless, checking in secrets into public repos, etc.?
Yeah, and that 23.7 number, to give a little context of why it's so scary, is that's actually a 25% jump year over year. So this is
Right.
a problem that's growing. So we like to talk about this in the context of anti-patterns. So basically, what are the trends and behaviors that are leading to this reality? And before I kind of go into the patterns, just to provide some additional context around the number, that 23.7 million number, 80% of those secrets actually belong to corporations. So these aren't individuals who are playing around as part of personal projects or, in something non-work related, and exposing secrets that don't link to anything important. These are the crown jewels of a lot of corporations, and 85% of those corporate secrets are actually being exposed in the personal repos of developers, right? So totally
Wow.
outside span of control and visibility of the corporation. So why this is happening, how this is happening, you know, anti-pattern number one is the classic fat finger, right? You've got developers who are moving fast, doing a lot of things, and they may accidentally push something to a public corporate repo as opposed to a private one. And this is happening frequently, and it's increasing. The other anti-pattern, which I find to be a little bit more interesting and unique, right, because there are a lot of cyber problems that are effectuated through fat fingering, is the dynamic where you've got the developer who has built something at work and they want to take it home and either repurpose it and build on top of it as a personal project, or maybe they're using what they built at his work as a means to showcase their skills and ability to a prospective employer. And in both scenarios, they essentially take code, corporate code, that either is standalone as it was or has those additional bells and whistles on top of it to form that personal project. And they're pushing it to their personal GitHub repo, the public one, and inadvertently exposing corporate secrets in the process, right? In this example, we assume the code being pushed and built on top of had exposed secrets in it.
Right. Thanks, Alex, for some fascinating insights, right, on the bad behaviors why developers are being so careless. Look, as some folks may know, look, I've got real practitioner experience, known in the industry as Mr. NHI, run a number of large NHI programs. One of the first scans we did at an organization using like a really basic scanning tool, we found over 1 million leaks. And one of the biggest challenges was the huge number of false positives, right? So we couldn't see
Sure.
the wood from the trees. So Alex, why don't you tell us how GitGuardian is positioned overall from a scanning standpoint and what's unique about your capabilities?
Sure. So obviously, scanning super critical given the nature of this space and the problem that we're trying to solve. I think The easiest way to go about this is to kind of bifurcate this into two categories, which are why are we as accurate as we are when scanning, and what are the things that we can scan that others can't that are obviously important to scan. So, from an accurate standpoint, we have had the benefit of essentially cloning and mirroring every commit that's been pushed to public GitHub since 2017. Why this
Right.
is relevant, why this is helpful. We're essentially back testing our scanners against massive amounts of real public data and using the results to refine our scanners, resulting in scanners that produce really low false positive rate and really favorable false negative rate, arguably best in the space. The other elements of why we're as accurate as we are is really a function of how we approach and appreciate the problem. So if you look in secrets as a space, they're for all intents and purposes, two types of secrets. We have what we refer to as a generic secret. So high entropy, put it another way, a lot of variation. And then we have specific types of secrets. Now, most folks in the space are really just focused on building as many specific type of detectors as possible to capture those specific secrets. The problem with that approach is roughly 70% of the secrets that you'll find in an organization fall into the generic category, and you cannot accurately capture and detect a generic secret with a specific scanner. So we at GitGuardian appreciate this reality. So instead of kind of going out there trying to build as many types of specific scanners as we can, we focus predominantly on generic scanners and building the most accurate generic scanners out there. So that's why we are as accurate as we can. And again, I'm talking about false positive and recall, or put it another way, false negative. And then the other reason why our scanning is as unique and powerful as it is because of what we can scan. Now, most folks, when they think about exposed secrets, they think about this exclusively as a source code problem. So they're thinking
Yeah.
about VCS, SCS, SCM systems like GitHub, GitLab, and they're not wrong to think that way because roughly 80% of an organization's secrets live in source code. The problem is 20% don't. 20% of secrets volume lives across what we refer to as other data sources here at GetGuardian. Think Jira, Confluence, Slack, Teams. Think all the tools that developers use to collaborate and communicate as they build. GitGuardian appreciates that a chunk of secrets that we need to identify and scan for live in these other data sources. So we've actually focused heavily on building out robust support for other data sources. So we can scan all these sources. And the other comment I'll make about why it's so important to scan other data sources, outside of the fact that it represents 20% of the secrets volume, is on average the types of secrets that we're finding in other data sources compared to those that we find in source code are a higher severity. They're more important. They need to be prioritized and solved for. Roughly 38% of secrets in other data sources are high severity compared to about 31% of the secrets that we find in source code being high severity.
That's really great insights there. Again, from my experience dealing with even regulators, they've insisted that scanning needs to cover everything, not just your code repos, your SharePoint, your Jiras. So it's great that you cover such a wide spectrum of different data sources.
Sorry, and just one more comment I want to make here. I think it's an important one. A lot of people when they hear that stat, the question is, are you serious? Like, why would a developer ever expose a secret in a Slack message or in Jira and Confluence, right? Because we're talking about things that provide access to the crown jewels of an organization. And Lala, like if I asked you to Slack me your email password, you would never do that. No, that's crazy. And I think this phenomenon is candidly, I think it's deeply rooted in psychology, and a lot of this touches on a lot of kind of the content you cover and the things you speak to. There's this weird phenomenon when it comes to secrets and non-human identities where developers don't feel as if they own them, right? They didn't create them; they're users of them, and because they don't feel that sense of ownership, they don't exercise due care around them. Because again, all these things that we're seeing with Slack, Jira, Confluence, you would never see this with human identities or traditional usernames and passwords, but it's prevalent to the point where it represents 20% of the volume in a typical organization. So I think that's a big part of why we are living in the world that we are when it comes to these other data sources. And again, a big reason why we've made the investments that we have in being able to scan them.
Hey, great points there, Alex. Look, and I think this now feeds in very nicely to something I wanted to understand, which was around like how you handle the whole DevSecOps shift left shift right strategies. But look, clearly scanning is more of a detective control. But what else do you do, right, that actually stops the bleeding in the first place?
Right, because it's one thing to try to remove water out of the bucket, right? But it's also important to prevent new water from flowing in. Otherwise, you're not going to really
Yeah.
make a lot of progress here. So yeah, so at GitGuardian, we definitely have a shift left and a shift right approach. We're really trying to help organizations approach secret-based security and compromise from both sides of the equation. So on the shift left front, we have agents that can be installed on the developers' machines that are effectively scanning code before it gets committed and alerting developers when there are exposed secrets in them. Now, we stop at an alert because we do want to be cognizant about creating additional friction between developers and security. This is an age-old challenge that takes a number of different flavors across many organizations, but we appreciate it's an important collaboration to foster. So we don't want to be the tool that stops and pushes developers further away from security. So we simply alert, and there are going to be reasons why a dev would want to let one go. But again, we give you the ability to stop additional secrets from being exposed into exposed secrets into source code with that agent. Now, on the other side, the shift right, one of the big challenges with secrets and secrets-based compromise is when an attacker uses a secret, the way they're in which they're using it mimics normal positive behaviors, right? They're simply logging in. Whether or not they have nefarious intention or not is not clear to traditional security systems. And we don't have additional layers of security that we have in human security, like MFA, to really stop these things or alert when someone is trying to effectuate a secrets based attack. So, my point being is the ability to detect a secrets breach is difficult, and you typically see a pretty long gap between when that breach took place and when it was detected. So, in an effort to help organizations combat this reality, we have a product called Honey Tokens. They're exactly what they sound like. Think dummy credentials that we plant in source code alongside real credentials that alert when they get lifted. So if you combine our ability to find exposed secrets, plus our ability to prevent new ones from being introduced, plus our ability to alert you as quickly as possible when there is a compromise, it is a three-legged stool. We're approaching this problem from all angles, which is why organizations see the ROI that they do with our tool.
That's fantastic. And I must say, I do love the term honey token. Um, I love the name. Yeah, look, let's move on a little bit to kind of like some of the broader capabilities beyond just pure, scanning secrets. You've recently kind of expanded your capabilities to include non-human identity governance, which is like a key focus for any organization that wants to get control of NHIs and secrets. Can you shed some more insights on your NHI governance capabilities?
Yeah, so the NHI governance release is a natural extension of our mission, which is to help companies deal with mismanaged non human identities. Mismanaged can mean a lot of things. It can mean exposed in source code, it can mean over permissioned or privileged, it can mean long lived, it can mean improperly stored. The initial product, Secret Security, was really mostly focused on exposed and giving you the ability to remediate exposed, which will take some form of revocation, rotation, and then ultimately vaulting. But we weren't necessarily delivering on the additional capabilities that need to go into governing a non human identity, right? And that's exactly what NHI governance does. So it takes our competency in discovering exposed credentials and then it plugs into the vaults and the identity providers in an effort to A, give us the ability to seamlessly push things to vaults, but B, also to get an inventory of everything that's already vaulted or with an identity provider. And why that's important is if you think about it, with the initial product, we only have exposed secrets. Now, when you combine that with everything that's in a vault or living with an identity provider, now we have the entire group of assets, right? You can't manage what you can't see. So with NHI governance, we're giving you visibility into all assets. We're giving you the ability to do streamlined remediation, right? Pushing to vault, triggering rotation. And then we go a step further in that we now give organizations the ability to implement and manage their NHI programs in the context of policies and frameworks, right? So an example is we've got this policy engine. It's think a visualized map where we would show you if you're violating any of the OWASP top 10s for NHIs. For example, are we looking at a secret that is being used across environments? Is this in dev and prod? If so, that's not good practice, right? What percent of your secrets are currently vaulted? What is the average age of a secret in your environment? Those are the types of questions that we aim to answer and the types of challenges that we help organizations solve with NHI governance.
Okay, look, that was very insightful, Alex. I think for any organization, starting with governance, seeing the size of the problem, seeing how many you have, and then being able to take a risk-based approach is clearly, and then some quick wins to de-risk as much as possible is critical for any organization.
Yep.
Just moving on, so are there any other areas GitGuardian is focused on? There's a lot of discussion, obviously, around Gen AI and agentic AI. Anything else you want to share, Alex?
Yeah, no, the agentic topic is very relevant to us for a few reasons. So, reason number one is if you think about coding agents like GitHub Copilot or Cursor, they're effectively going to replicate at scale what they've
Mm.
seen, what they're trained on. So if you have agents that are being trained on code that has exposed secrets in it, guess what? They're going to build code with exposed secrets. So they almost have essentially the ability to scale and further automate the problem. So that's one of the trends we're seeing. And we've got a number of stats in our State of Secrets report that kind of speak to what we're seeing in terms of AI generated code and exposed secrets. Another thing to think about is if you think about what an agent is, right? It's something that executes tasks, it's a machine. Well, it uses secrets in order to execute tasks and gain entitlement. So, for every agent that we're introducing into the tech stack, we're probably introducing a number of secrets with it. We already live in a world where there are about 100 non human identities for every human identity in a company. Agents are going to push that number higher. The last comment I'll make is kind of a sub use case within secret security, where again, we have organizations that are looking to deploy agents into the code base. And as excited as they are to reap the productivity gains, they don't trust the model providers to see their exposed secrets, right? And in dropping an agent into source code, if there are exposed secrets there, they're going to see them, right? They don't necessarily like the idea of an open AI having credentials that provide access into databases and the other sensitive spaces. So the use case that we're seeing is customers, mainly in highly regulated industries like financial services, are actually using GitGuardian, deploying it into the places that they want to deploy key agents to first use it to identify exposed secrets and remove them. I call it secret sanitization to allow for the safe deployment of AI. So that happens in source code. But again, going back to one of the earlier comments about other data sources, those are also places where agents are potentially being deployed. Slack, Jira, so on and so forth. So if those tools have exposed secrets in them, it's that same risk that you see in the code base. So that's another reason why kind of that other data sources capability is so important for customers in this use case. It's enabling the safe deployment of AI agents across the entire tech stack, not just the code base.
Thanks for that, Alex. Look, fascinating that AI-based code generators are just repeating kind of the bad mistakes of developers and actually creating more secrets rather than doing things the right way. Um, okay, just going to recap now kind of what we've discussed about the Gig Guardian product. Um, you've really got high competency when it comes to scanning. You don't just do shift left, you do shift right. So you do very efficient scanning. You can also like stop check-ins or identify secrets at check-in time, and the use of honey tokens to potentially identify if someone's trying to breach your organization. Obviously, you've got you know very deep, many years of research on scanning. You've been scanning GitHub repos for 6+ years, so your algorithms, your logic is very, very mature, and you scan pretty much everything that's out there.
Yep.
Not just code repos, Jira, Slack, SharePoint. So you have the breadth of scanning. And also now with the introduction of your NHI capabilities and your mature scanning, you're very well positioned to join the dots provide the context, report on, the NHIs that are out there, and
Yep.
then start helping, groups take a risk-based approach once they know the size of the problem, the potential issues, what has the biggest problems, focusing on the OWASP top 10, you can then help organizations drive a risk-based program. Alex, is that a fair summary, or do you have any further closing thoughts?
No, fair summary. I think two quick closing thoughts. We spend a lot of time today talking about detection, but detection without remediation is just noise, right? And one of the things that truly sets us apart is our ability to support organizations in remediating those exposed secrets. We're very familiar with the competitive landscape and the types of problems that customers have, and remediation is really challenging, and a lot of customers are underserved in this regard. You've got companies who will tell the company that you've got 10 exposed secrets, but they don't differentiate, are those 10 unique secrets or nine occurrences of the same one? And that's a really important piece of information from a remediation standpoint. If you get that wrong, you're going to break a lot of things. So I definitely want to emphasize that remediation is a big focus of ours and another area where we shine. And then going back to the NHI governance space, and obviously it's becoming a very popular market. It's a huge problem. It should be a popular market. But I think what I really see about us that separates us from the back is our approach is rooted in discovery. And if you think about NHI governance as a problem space, I would argue that the hardest and most important problem to solve is discovery, because NHIs take on so many different shapes and sizes and live in so many different places, and you can't manage what you can't see. I don't see other folks in the space having that same focus and competency in discovery and detection. So, in addition to other reasons, I think that is one of the reasons why people should talk to GitGuardian and consider our solution.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Alex, for sharing great insights on your Git Guardian product. We're all now looking forward to seeing a demo of the Git Guardian product as that's published. Thank you very much.
It's been my pleasure, Lalit. Thank you for having me again. Looking forward to bumping into you at the next conference.